Day rolling here, shall we? Good morning.
Good morning.
I saw something on the way to this morning that I haven't seen for a while. I actually saw a shadow, the way we've had all this fog. Wasn't enough sun to really see the sun, but it created enough light to create a shadow.
So 6 more months before summer gets here?
Maybe. If anybody even has a hint of that light deprivation, you're present. So, but it's the 5th of May. It's the Cinco de Mayo, which is still the 5th of May, which means it's just another day. It's kind of like St. Patrick's Day. It's just another excuse for Budweiser to throw more product attention, which we don't need. Let's turn in the hymn book this morning to 215. 215. My Lord knows the way through the wilderness. All I have to do is follow. Let's sing it. Let's stand and sing together.
Acts 23, let's go there. We're up and running, and we left off at the word Rome. We were at the word both refers to number one. Verse 8, 2 Corinthians. Just trying to think of what that, let's see, we're at 23H. They confess, the Pharisees confess both the resurrection and they confess the spirits. The 2 Corinthians 1, what's verses 3 through 7? Comfort one another with these words. To comfort, and it appears 10 times. We talked about Hebrews 13:5. I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. Matthew 20, I'm with you always. And 2 Kings 6:16. Oh, I think that's the story of, we said that was the story of Elisha and his servant. In fact, that's where we're going to be tonight. All right, now, we're going to start at Rome. Father, that you would just bless our lesson today, and that you would use it for your glory, and that we would learn your word as we march through your word now. In Christ's name, amen. All right. Acts 23, the word Rome. Why am I having trouble finding this? Good share. Yeah. And somebody help me out. It's under, I'm way off on my verses here. Is that what the problem is? Oh, verse 11. I'm at verse 8. Verse 11. The night following the Lord's refinement. Okay. Be of good cheer, Paul, for us in Rome. Okay. In other words, comforting words in that, those comforting words. All right. I don't know why I was looking at verse 8. Okay. We're at verse 11. So must thou bear witness also at Rome. But by the way, are we too warm in here? Because I turned the heat is up, so just so you know. Rome. All right. Why don't we, we'll get it down here in a little while. Romans 1:10. Let's turn there. The intention is for Paul to go to Rome. Making request if by any means now at length I might have a prosperous journey by the will of God to come unto you. All right, so his desires to go there. Well, what did Paul say he would build his ministry on? He would not build it how? Anybody recall?
Baptism.
Pardon? On another man's foundation. Yes. That would be our proof text to prove that who did not go to Rome? Peter. So there's those that argue the opposite. So that is our proof text that Peter did not go to Rome. Peter goes and what is it called in the Bible? It's not in here, but let's just exercise our memory on this. Where did Peter go? He says he goes to, doesn't he say he goes to Babylon? He goes to Babylon. I think that's in Peter. And then I think we also go to Jerusalem, which spiritually is called what in Revelation? Sodom and Egypt. And that might not be, that may also be in Peter. Sodom and Egypt. So spiritually these things are called different names. And so the proof, that is the proof text that we would say that Peter is not the first pope, that he never went there. Paul wants to go there. The verse that states that he will not go where another man had gone before, and so on. Now, another way to get around that, and not get around it, but to go where no other man had gone. When the radio came out, why did they not want to get on the radio with the gospel? There's a spiritual reason for people not to be on the radio with the gospel. No, a verse. A chapter and a verse. No, they don't use that. They use the one on the armor of God. What's it say there? He is the Prince of what? Yeah, they'll actually go there. Now we're talking back like 1920, 1930. So preachers would say we can't go there. It's from listening to, you might listen to the Bible Bus. Who's that guy? Jay Brainerd. Yeah, in other words, they'll bring up, because they've been around 100 years.
Yeah.
They'll bring it up, well, you can't be on the radio, and they'll bring up what was said back then.
Yeah.
You can't be on there because the devil is the prince and power of the air. Well, but a reason to be on it is no man, you can say, well, the gospel went to this place and this place, but no man went on the radio.
Yeah.
And so we get on these new things. Another thing, in today's market, it's getting on YouTube or Snapchat or Instagram. What do you call the whole good thing? The World Wide Web.
The internet.
The internet. Thank you. Getting on the internet. So there's different means to do it. Now, for me to sit there and say you shouldn't be on the internet doing that, well, the gospel's getting out. I mean, I would just be equivalent to saying you shouldn't be on the radio. Right? So there's different methods. it was Jackie that was here. Jackie was here, and I said to her, well, what you do is you take the gospel. How does Jackie pay her bills? She's modern. I remember, she doesn't think like you. How does she pay her bills? Online. Well, I wouldn't even know how to begin doing that. And so I said, well, when you pay your bills, you just stick the gospel tract in there. And you know what she said to me? You were there when she said it to me. She said, wow, what a unique idea.
Yeah.
And it was new to her. She'd never heard of such a thing. Paying through the mail, mailing it to somebody that they're going to eventually get it. And for her, this was like some fantastic, what goes around comes around. Things come, make full circle. And it's not to say that she's going to do that, but, they pay their bills online. I don't know how that's done. But that's how people do it. And so she said, wow, what a unique idea. People put it in toilet rolls in public wash and all kinds of things. So he didn't want to go where other men have been. So there's question. Go ahead.
We're talking about church planting. You're talking about church planting. You don't want to plant a church behind in the backyard of some other guys when there's other places to go to build a church.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah. They were frowned on us for starting a church here. That we were a mile away from another church.
Well.
Anyway, Acts 19, verse 21. Let's turn there.
More people here now.
Yeah.
This population is a lot more dense than it is then.
Well, others will say that the elders that were appointed, they'll go to Titus and say, I appointed elders in every city. At one time, we were taught in class that Pastor Thompson, they would preach that he was the only church in Cleveland that was supposed to be there. They'll use that for their proof text for that. That's what we were taught in class, is that's hogwash. And man, you can do a whole lot of pretzel making. So Acts 19, verse 21, after those things were ended, Paul purposed in the Spirit that he had passed through Macedonia and Achaia to go to Jerusalem, saying, after I had been there, I must also see Rome. He wants to go there and witness. Are there already people there that are saved? Who specifically would have been saved that Paul met later on? I'm not saying I had the timeline right. Assuming they were saved and they were excommunicated, maybe not because they were Christian, but because they were Jews. He worked with them. Priscilla and Aquila, remember they were forced out because of the persecution of the Jews, I think, and they were kicked out of Rome, if I remember right. All right, Paul's self-will, Acts 21, he has his self-will. Brothers and sisters, we all have a self-will. And finding disciples, we tarried there 7 days, who said to Paul through the Spirit that he should not go up to Jerusalem. So later on here, from Acts 19 to Acts 21, he's not to go to Jerusalem. But he goes anyway. And the idea here is, now you can argue the fact and say that's not true, and which it may not be true, and that it cost him 2 years of his life, of a delay of getting there. It could be true, it may not be true. In verse 27 of Acts 24, but after 2 years, Porcius Festus came into Felix's room, and Felix, willing to show the Jews a pleasure, left Paul behind. So he's there rotting in jail. He's not in Rome. God's going to get him to Rome, but by some other means. If Paul had submitted and had said you should go up to Jerusalem, if he had listened to the leading of the Spirit instead of following his self-will, he would have got there probably sooner and by the perfect will of God. So it's the difference between God's perfect will and God's permissive will. Acts 9, is God does have a perfect will for him, Acts chapter 9, that he's going to perform. But the Lord said unto him, Go thy way, he is a chosen vessel unto me, to bear my name before the Gentiles and kings and the children of Israel. For I will show him how great things he must suffer for my name's sake. In general, that is his perfect will, and but God's permissive will, he let him go and carry out his self-will. Folks, we have a self-will of what we want it. Doesn't every little kid, how does every little kid want it? They want it how? Their way. And then when we get older, we get belligerent about it. It's my way or the what? Or the highway. We'll probably bring that up this morning too. It's your way or the highway. And that kind of an attitude. And what causes that? And why that is. And what you're actually fighting against. All right, now he says in chapter 23, there, verse 11, again, be of good cheer. How does it, we preached it one time, the prescription of God. What doeth like a good medicine? Pardon? A merry heart doeth like a good medicine. I mean, some of the best times I've ever had are next door at work. We had a guy in there that was a comedian. From the start, when you opened up to the time you left, it was joke after joke. It was just in between engraving while the machines would be turned off, you'd hear a joke. It was, it does brighten up the day, folks. But be of good cheer. What is John 16:33? Be of good cheer, for I what? I have overcome the world. Be of good cheer. So be cheerful of that as you face the world, Jesus has already conquered it. Acts 27. Why was he of good cheer there? Paul says he'd be of good cheer in verse 22. What takes place in Acts 27? What's going on there? Near the end of Acts. They're in the middle of what? A shipwreck. In a storm. A little ship. Not an ocean line. They show these cruise ships at the mercy of the sea, right? Where they lose power and they're tipsy, and all you had to do is just watch the Titanic. Just wants to know, man, just be glad you didn't get tickets for that. When they make those movies, somebody's about to buy the tickets, right? And then they don't. So the Lord stood with him and said, be of good cheer, for the Lord stood with me, saying that all we're going to make it safely, we're all going to survive this. Where it seems hopeless, right? They threw everything overboard trying to lighten the ship so they wouldn't sink. When Ben and I and Abe went canoeing, we went canoeing in the Cuyahoga. When we first set sail out there, I think it's a two-man canoe. There were three of us in there. And Abe brought all his gear. We were going to fish the whole length of the river. But when we got in the boat and we all started, I realized this may be to our hurt. The level of the water, it was, I'm not joking, it was only that high, that much between the water and the top of the canoe. I mean, it wasn't like this much. Apparently they make floaters that you can put around a canoe and different ways to keep it up. But we were almost swamped before we got started. The boat was pretty well on the verge of being swamped. And the very first time we stopped and we went sideways, Abe had one thing to say the whole trip. His favorite word was, I don't know how many times he said that, but that was his favorite word. As we would go under. Yeah, anyway, I I wouldn't want to be in that, it starts with a E, the name of the storm, they call it, Ep something. And I wouldn't want to go down, but being of good cheer.
It's a heavy storm from the northeast.
We need to be a happy people, folks. And happy is a Bible word. Fun isn't. Happy is. Let's just look at these verses. We should be a people of good cheer. Matthew 9:2. And behold, they brought to him a man sick of the palsy, lying on a bed. And Jesus, seeing their faith, said unto the sick of the palsy, Son, be of good cheer. Thy sins be forgiven thee. I mean, to receive. I mean, that'll preach, right? You can pull out this good cheer. And the fact that we are pardoned, we should be happy. Have good cheer for that. Matthew 14. See if we take this in order. Matthew 14. Matthew 14, verse 27. But straightway Jesus spake unto them, this one he's coming, when he's walking on the water, saying, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. So having good cheer when we're in the presence of Jesus. Hey, where two or three are gathered, there I am in the midst. When we know it's spiritually speaking that we're in the presence of Jesus. He dwells within our hearts, etc. John 16. John 16, we've already quoted the verse, but let's turn there. Be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. All right. It doesn't appear that way, but the promise is that we can bank on this. He's done it. All right, Acts 23:11, right where we are. Turn there. And the night following, the Lord stood by him and said, Be of good cheer, Paul, for as thou hast testified to me in Jerusalem, so must thou bear witness also at Rome. In other words, divine protection. You're going to get there. You're going to get there. The one we're at the in the cedar, 27. And I think 4 people just put it down. Now I exhort you to be of good cheer, for there shall be no loss of any man's life among you, but of the ship. Being of good cheer. Verse 20. I must say it again there. Wherefore, sirs, be of good cheer, for I believe, God, that it shall be even as it was told me. Some may be doubtful of what was told, but Paul believed it. Acts 27, verse 36. Then were they all of good cheer, and they also took some meat. And so it says all of them. So it's spread. This good cheer is spread. A good cheer does spread. If you have a jolly fellow about you, it is contagious. If you have a miserable fellow, well, that's contagious too. It's like a disease, right? Right? It's like the measles. This measles outbreak. They say there's 600 cases, or it's spreading. So a sour disposition can set the tone for everybody else being on edge and miserable too. It's very demeaning. It's very demoralizing. But a cheerful and upbeat attitude is
600 sounds like a whole lot, though. I think we're going to die.
Pardon?
600 sounds like a whole lot of people. We think we're going to be going around pretty soon.
Well, it's not 600,000.
600 people.
Yeah. Well, and it's not like they're dying. I mean, they have the measles. Did anybody here have the measles?
Yeah.
Did we all have the measles?
Yes, everybody did.
Did I have the measles? I must. Okay, then we all had it.
It's God's
I
grace.
think I'm here.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I was like 7 months old and had the measles, but my mother and my sister had the mumps. The whole house was quarantined.
I know. I did not have the mumps. My sister had the mumps, and they took pictures of her. She was all swollen, and her face, her neck was kind of puffy.
This how God advances your immune system.
It's measles, mumps, and rubella. No. And anyway, be of good cheer. It is contagious. Now take that to heart. You
So you
set
stay
the
home.
tone. You set the tone in the office. You set the tone in the shop. You set the tone in the school. I mean, the kids, like, what kind of a teacher do they generally like? And I don't mean by age. You know, a young one over an old one.
The lazy one.
No, not lazy one. I mean, the kids that they're on Becca, and they like these teachers that kind of clown around or make jokes. You know, that are not to say that the classroom's out of order.
They make learning fun.
You can make learning fun. You can make work fun. You can make work fun.
Make it less of a chore, right?
Well, what's the work song that Harry Belafonte sings?
Oh, banana song.
The banana song. Day-o, daylight. Well, we would have the radio on, and the radio would be going all day long. It wasn't fake music; it was real music. Well, anyway, Harry Belafonte would come on and he'd be singing "Day." Well, we're all working in the shop, and then we all start singing the song all at the same time. It makes it fun, and we're all waiting for we would say we're thankful for the help, because if it wasn't for the help, we would never know when to go home.
When I work midnight shift, that's what I always said. Daylight come, I want to go home.
Daylight come. If you lighten it up, I mean, come on.
13 tons, and what do you get? Another
Yeah,
day older
13
and deeper
tons.
in debt?
Is it 13 tons?
16.
16. Yeah, come on. You're 3 tons short on your load.
Sorry.
You're short, 3 tons short. All right. Here's another good one. Knowing the Lord has need of you promotes cheerfulness. There's nothing worse than thinking that you are of no value or have no use. No value and no use. That brings cheerfulness, is to know that you are needed. You are needed. It's kind of like the baby is in the room here right now.
She's allowed to hear this.
And okay, well, I don't need the wife right now. If I have Esther, I don't need the wife. If I have a baby, I don't need the wife. When do I need the baby? I mean, when do I need the wife? When see, in Spanish, they say caca.
Uh-oh.
It's caca. Honey, I mean, just the fact that you're needed to change a diaper brings usefulness and cheerfulness. Right? Change the diaper. Help!
Especially for the one being changed.
Help, And so we lighten up, folks. All right, verses 12 through 15. We now shift to this next point, the conspiracy. It's about 3/5 the way through our outline, the conspiracy. They want to bring Paul down. They want to kill Paul, verses 12 through 15. And when it was day, certain of the Jews banded together and bound themselves under a curse, saying that they would neither eat nor drink till they had killed Paul. And they were more than 40 which had made this conspiracy, and that's how we come up, it was part of the C words. There it is, the conspiracy. They came to the chief priests and elders and said, "We have bound ourselves under a great curse, that we will eat nothing until we have slain Paul. Now therefore ye with the council signify to the chief captain that he bring him down unto you tomorrow, as though ye would inquire something more perfectly concerning him. And we, or ever he come near, are ready to kill him." So they weren't waiting around. 24 hours later, we're going to do him in. I mean, because they're not going to eat nor drink. I mean, hey, we can't eat. You don't last much more than 24 hours. Man, we want to get down to Chick-fil-A. So let's get this over with.
So they all started it.
Otherwise, they'll all starve to death. And obviously, they made an oath and they didn't keep it, right? Because they never killed them. And so they make this conspiracy, you know, with their government, there's this conspiracy going on, is they're going to investigate the investigators. This is actually going to happen now. What has been revealed to Barr, there is a former FISA court attorney, Joe DeBena. What's that guy's name? Joe. He's been saying this for a while. There's been people saying that this is a conspiracy right
De
from the
Genova?
beginning. Joe DeBena?
De Genova?
Something like that. He said that they have already reported, the FISA court has already reported to Barr, Bill Barr, William Barr, of the conspiracy or the deception that was given to the FISA court to Bill Barr. So he's going to check into this. And then, who's the guy that's on 1420 early in the morning? What's his name?
Trevison?
No.
Hewitt.
Hugh Hewitt. He is, he's kind of confederate with a couple of buddies on CNN or MSNBC. He's got a couple of buddies there. He's supposed to be a conservative, but he hedges towards being a liberal never-Trumper. And so he's not real popular. You hear of him and the other guy that was on 1420 at 3 rarely on Fox because they tend to be more never-Trumper. What's that guy's name?
Gorka.
The movie guy. I can't think of his name.
He's off the radio.
Yeah, he's off. The other guy took over. I can't think of his name. But he was more like a never-Trumper.
Michael Medved.
Michael Medved. He seems to be kind of liberal. But this Hugh Hewitt, I caught him glancing saying, I only heard about it, that he said on CNN or one of these programs, he said, you better lawyer up. Now, if you got a never-Trumper saying that, you better lawyer up. Now, they've been saying that some of these guys, who was the guy that already got Andy McCarthy? Who was the FBI agent that, I can't think of it. They said, they've been saying you better, or they already did lawyer up. These guys are going to lawyer up, and they said that Comey, that something was coming out in 2 weeks. Well, this is 2 weeks. So I don't know if it's something happening now, but they said within 2 months this thing's really going to hit.
Well, they flipped Rosenstein.
And that they already, what's the next report coming out? I don't know if it's a judge from Utah or Nevada.
Inspector General.
The Inspector General. Who's the Inspector General? But they already are saying that Barr is already working with the Inspector General. That's what I heard, that this is the biggest conspiracy in the nation's history. That this is going to make Watergate look like nothing. Now, hey, I don't know. But if I was Hillary, I would hope that they don't find any smashed blackberries or whatever, blueberries or whatever she smashed. And these people are still yapping their traps, and they're trying to cover their bases. They're calling for Barr to resign. He's not going to resign. And I wouldn't make him any madder.
Badge of honor.
Yeah, he's going to go down in the history books as the one that exposed all this. Even though he didn't expose it all, but the one that prosecuted these people. For all I know, they got a grand jury already.
That's testing his food every day.
Barr better be testing his food every day. Yeah, because anytime I see a Trump rally, I tell the wife, I say, we might see, who was the one that did the Kennedy in? What's his name?
Which Kennedy?
Oh,
Which Kennedy?
well, you know which one.
How about Dixon?
Oswald. I mean, that was live action.
Yeah, but he made
We saw, all of us here, most of us here saw that live.
George Bush.
Well, when I see him there, I say, we might see a real live action. You know, because these people are hated. They're hated. There's this hatred. Folks, to take this oath and to do this conspiracy, they hate Paul. Because he's there and he's taken down the swine. It's always about the what? It's about the money. And Jesus was messing around with the Pharisees and their exchange. We're going the money changers. Well, if you've got this sheep and we exchange it for that sheep, well, they're getting 10% or whatever they're getting on the side. They're trading it in for the better to sell it off at auction later. It's just however they were working the scam. They didn't want the gravy train messed up. That's why I still claim there's these never Trumpers, even though they're Republicans, because if they don't bring them up from Mexico illegally, they can't work in their factories to make these rich guys that are conservatives, that are supporting the Republicans, fat cats. It's all about the money. So they don't care if you're an R or a D. We want to keep the flow of the money going. That's what I claim the deep swamp is. So they want to keep this going. They've got to get Paul. They've got to get him. So the men, in verse 12, the motive is given. And they're going to murder him. Let's see, it's a mutual understanding between the chief priests and the elders. They bind themselves together. You know, what do they say? It makes for strange bedfellows. You know, we all get hooked up together. And the method that they're going to use is we're going to bring them out secretly in a feign that we need to talk to him more accurately. We're going to do him in. All right, so it is the Jews that are doing this. Verse 13, there's more than 40 of them. Now, anything over 40 is more than 40. It could be 41, it could be 80. All right, they are going to murder him. Galatians 6. Verse 7, be not deceived, God is not mocked, for whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. Folks, if you're plotting like this, just what goes around comes around, folks. What goes around comes around. Acts 9, Paul was a murderer. He was going around. What goes around comes around. So as he was trying to kill people, making an attempt, what goes around comes around in his corner. Now he's trying to be killed. In Acts 9, verses 1 and 2, he was all yet breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the Lord, went unto the high priest. Out our way, they just sold the Lutheran Church to I brought it up on Wednesday, they sold it to Muslims. And they paid $750,000. If I remember right, they owed the synod, or whatever they call it, $1.2 million. I don't know how they negotiated all this. And they're going to have to dump, they said $200,000 in it to get the building up to snuff. I thought they were still meeting in there. But folks, there's Muslims cropping up all over. And I know that sometimes you and I, we could be worried about it. Who's going to end up surrounding Jerusalem and the Jews? And it looks like Christians are on their way out. Folks, always remember this. The church ain't going down. The church is going up.
Yep.
We're going up. And if there's fewer and fewer and fewer of us, well, hang in there, folks. Hang in there. And they want to go liberal. They want to wink and nod and just hook up. And we'll all be, it's like the coexist thing. If we all see the bumper sticker, coexist. But folks, we're not to coexist. We're not. We're right, they're wrong, and that's the end of it. All right? I mean, we don't purposely antagonize them. We're to win them over. We're to become all things to all men. But folks, we're not to hook up with them. I know, what was it? And hooking up together is no new thing. When we were 30 years ago, it was Hands Across America, if you remember right. And they kept calling all the churches, our pastor, he said, all right, we'll get involved, we'll come on down. Well, they put on the carpenter aprons with pouches in it and stuffed it with tracts. They weren't doing Hands Across America. They all right, you want us to get involved, we will. They passed out tracts. Which I thought was kind of funny. They just said, well, all right, we'll get that in there. All right, they break 2 commandments. And we're way over. We'll pick it up there in verse 12. They break these in Acts 23, verse 12. They break 2 commandments when they do that. You know, it's more than it's easy to break the law when it's to your advantage. Right? We learned that when we were in this foster thing. They make up the law on the fly. And the prosecutor would tell us about it. He said, well, that's not legal to do that. And how are you going to fight the judge? The judge makes this ruling. Then by the time that you, let's say, want to put a say on it or do this, and you kick the can, it's kind of like the debt. They kept kicking the can down. They're still kicking the can. You know, it's going to come around to haunt them. Who's them? Us. One day. Right? Well, we'll bring this up next. We'll start there, the breaking of the 2 commandments. Father, bless now the preaching in Christ's name.